Hey up everybody, how you all doing? Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you could join me. Oh, hello, if it's your first time here, I am Wayne. Right, I've got 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply ain't true. From list 25. This symbol looked familiar. I feel as though I might have seen that symbol before. I might have seen the videos before, but I definitely haven't seen this. I'll give it a subscribe and a like while I'm here. 25 common misconceptions. I can think of one. That you've all got guns, which I imagine is definitely not true. In fact, I know it's not true. I don't know how I know that. I just comments and stuff and things that I've read on the internet. Not all of you have got them. So yeah, bit of a big list, and I can only really think of one. No, I'll just get on with it, and he'll teach me the rest, won't he? Mr. List 25. Right, yeah. Linda, good luck with your physio next week on your end. I'm sure it'll be loads better once you've been there and got that sorted. But yeah, anyway, let's get on with this. Let's see what the... Actually, it's misconception. I might be confusing misconception and stereotype there by saying the gun thing there. Oh, they're the same thing. Misconception and stereotype. I don't know.
The United States often draws a lot of flack from the rest of the world for everything. From its foreign policy to the way it runs its domestic affairs. In fact, it seems like there are few things that can divide the world more evenly and more strongly than asking people what their opinion is of the United States. Everyone has an opinion. Even in the same city, you'll meet people who fall on the extreme sides of the spectrum. But what is it exactly that causes America to be so messed up? Even America's own politicians can't seem to stop talking about how messed up things are. Well, today we're going to take a deeper look. Are things really as bad as everyone seems to think they are? I'm Mike with List 25.
I think you're doing alright over there, so it can't be as bad as what people seem to think.
To stop talking about how messed up things are. Well, today we're going to take a deeper look. Are things really as bad as everyone seems to think they are? I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 common misconceptions about the United States.
Did he say his name was Mike? I think he did.
United States that simply aren't true. And as a very important note, this list was produced by both a United States citizen and 2 European citizens that relocated to the United States. It's written to be as fair as possible. No, I'm not 2 Europeans. Or am I?
No, you're not.
All right, let's begin with a really common thought. Americans are ignorant about the world. Americans are held to an unrealistic standard. Since the rest of the world watch our movies and listen to our music, they know a lot about our country. But let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Over here on TV, it's American, Australian now and again, and British. But I don't watch TV at all anymore. But yeah, Australian shows, American shows, and British shows mainly. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
They never studied it. So
I'm guessing, right, this is something I've never thought of as well, but it's got to be a thing, hasn't it? That non-English speaking countries, because we have dubbed over movies and stuff like that do like French or Japanese, Chinese, whatever. But Hollywood is exported to... I'm just thinking stupid here. I'm thinking places like... what a dumb thing. Germany, they'll have learned... rest of Europe that don't talk English, they've obviously got their information about America through Hollywood as well. My God, I never really thought about TV in other countries, if I'm honest.
People actually complain that Americans don't even know that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. But neither does half the United Kingdom, and they're on the same continent. It turns out that all of us are pretty bad at geography. You'd think America would be better at it, however, considering another common thought is that America spends its days spying on everyone. And that's true, but who doesn't? Germany, France, Switzerland, Japan, Iceland, and all the rest of us spy on each other and ourselves. Moving on, America has been called racist. Please don't take this the wrong way. Racism definitely exists.
when was this made? Because it's a massive thing about it all over the Western nations at the minute. About 6 years old. It's only worse now. It's, I don't know. Not political, so I'm not going to go on about it.
And it makes the news. But you know what else? America also has a vicious media, and all of the world watches it, sometimes more than their own media. So when something super bad happens in other countries, it might not even make the back page. Next, it's a common misconception that Americans don't use public transport. While it's true that we use cars a lot, many regions in America have great public transport.
I did nearly say about the transport system. I did nearly say about that at the beginning. So I do hear a lot that it's not very connected. I don't know what the map of America's train lines look like, but apparently it's not quite as connected as Europe is.
Or at least just as good as Europe. Besides, what good is a train if nobody can afford it? We're looking at you, UK.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Train, I have been on a train a long time, but by all accounts, it's ridiculous prices.
America does/has/is fill in the blank. America is far from being a unified entity. Each state has its own laws, cultures, and quirks. Some states have the death penalty. Some don't. Some have strict gun laws, and some don't. Some have free college. Some don't. Some have tax, and yeah, some don't. So just like you can't say Europe is so-and-so, you can't say...
That, to me, does make a lot of sense, because just how vast the USA is. I'm not saying that it'd be hard to regulate the same rules in the big area. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. That all the states are just so completely different. So you can't... I don't want to say different cultures, but different traditions. You've all got the same culture, but different vibes. So, yeah, it makes sense that you do have little nuances in the law and that. It does make sense. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. You let me know in the comments whether you think it should all be under one umbrella of the full law, or just how it is now.
Say the same about the U.S. As an additional note, the states are far... Yeah, some don't. So just like you can't say Europe is so-and-so, you can't say the same about the U.S. As an additional note, the states are far more independent than many of us realize. In fact, every state even has its own military, known as the Guard. Furthermore, some states pass legislation.
I didn't know that until you actually said Guard.
And that directly contradicts the federal government. This is because in the U.S., the federal government is not the highest authority. The states are. To further establish the fact that America isn't a single entity, many believe that Americans only speak one language. But that's no different from the rest of the world. Have you ever been to France? Or the UK? Or Italy? Or how about China? Most of them only speak one language too. That being said, over 20% of the US is bilingual. Now, let's talk about the military, because people outside the US will preach that America's military does, again, fill in the blank. Nobody is naive enough to think that the US doesn't have selfish interests in mind when it invades a country.
I'm sorry, but that's what conquest is about, innit? I know that'll annoy people, but if you're not doing it, somebody else is, and I don't know, I'll probably get myself in trouble saying things, but I don't know. War and conquest's crazy, but it's human nature, innit?
There isn't a nation on earth that would do that.
Not human nature, but animal nature. It's instincts, innit?
Selflessly. But whenever the bad goes down, it's just as common for other countries to complain that America should do something. On a more or less lighter note, Americans are fat. You ever been to the UK?
So, misconceptions and stereotypes is the same thing then, isn't it? Right, yeah. We've got our share of big people over here.
Lately, there are even scandals because obese patients are getting turned down for surgery. Yes, America does have an obesity problem. but not all citizens are involved in it. I am.
Not involved in it. I like the
A
way you put
big
that.
part of the United States is fairly health conscious and is consistently working to help the
See, that's one of the things that you do see on American TV and Hollywood and stuff like that. That there is a hell of a lot of Americans that are conscious of their health and the way they look and stuff like that. So I don't know where the obese thing comes from. Is that just because the sheer amount of fast food outlets you created? I don't know where that came from.
overweight population better their lives. Thanks, healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, many complain that America is worse than other developed nations in, well, everything. There are many statistics, child mortality, literacy, etc., where the US falls behind countries like Norway and Iceland. But those statistics are based on averages. In Norway, most of the 5 million inhabitants are rich, white, and Norwegian. If you took a similar sample of rich, white Americans in the US, you would find that the statistics are almost exactly the same. The fact is that the US is hugely diverse, and the American experience is completely different with and without money. Translation? The problem isn't healthcare or education, it's economic inequality, almost exclusively. And speaking of inequality...
Oh, bloody... I weren't expecting Wi-Fi to drop out, but if it takes too long to start again, I'll just edit it out. Oh, it looks like it wants to start again. I hadn't had a problem with my Wi-Fi in months.
Many make the simple but powerful assumption that America just isn't safe. This is usually what foreign citizens say until they actually come here. By this same logic, Paris, Brussels, London, Madrid, and almost every other city in Europe is unsafe as well. Yes, there are guns, but most Americans have never seen or heard a gun being fired. In fact, most Swiss citizens...
I do hear that a lot from a lot of American YouTubers that I check out that are like my age, in the 40s and stuff like that, that say they've never seen a gun. And to me, that's mental. I've watched a couple of videos and I've seen them in supermarkets. So, as they said though, not all states are the same.
Are much more familiar with gunfire than us Americans. All this being said so far, people still expect all Americans to relish in the life of our stereotypes. Guns, fast food, and freedom! What I'm saying is, a lot of the world looks at America as overly patriotic. But here's an honest question. Have you ever met a Russian, Australian, a proud member of the UK?
Bloody Wi-Fi.
There's no shame in having pride in your country. Us Americans are definitely patriotic. But so is the rest of the world. As they should be. It's not a crime to be proud of where you came from. But that doesn't stop others from thinking we only complain and boast about America whenever we travel abroad. This is largely anecdotal. In America, Americans like to complain just like the rest of us. Only a few of them ever even leave the country, so you're meeting an unrepresentative sample. But in their defense, many times, they're right. Yes, this can hit hard in the pride spot, but maybe Europeans could stand to smile a bit more, right? No?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Back to the apathetic, leave me alone face. By the way, that part was written for our European representative. By our European representative. Statistics viewed by outsiders show that the US is lagging behind. Similar to topics we've already discussed, there's another factor that we have to take into account. Reporting. Every nation reports its own statistics. This means that making statistical comparisons between two developed nations, like the US and the UK, is an exercise in futility. The data is just too close and won't reveal much except that the US counts people one way and the US counts them another. That still doesn't make this misconception true. Americans are fake. Here's the thing.
Fake.
In Europe, citizens are almost proud of the fact that they're really standoffish. But once you get to know them, they're your friend for life. Well, here's a newsflash. Once you get to know an American, they'll also be your friend for life. The thing is, though, they don't use this as an excuse to be a jerk in the beginning.
I've been watching, I like the way you just put that, don't use that yet. Not a jerk in the beginning. I've been watching Jack Ainsley Travels and everyone he's been chatting to so far in there looks extremely friendly. So
this list sounds great coming from an American.
I believe that a lot of you.
I was totally the one who should have read this one, but I digress. On a totally different but very popular misconception, Americans are the only ones who call football soccer. Actually, a lot of the world calls it soccer.
Apparently, soccer was started over here. When I say over here, I don't mean the UK, I mean in Europe. But it probably is England where the term soccer started.
Even parts of Ireland still call it soccer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, what do I mean by still? I'm glad you asked. It was actually the British who coined the term soccer. The word soccer is an abbreviation of association and first appeared in universities in the 1880s, sometimes using the variant spelled soccer with a K. The word is sometimes credited to Charles Redford Brown, an Oxford University student said to have been fond of shortened forms such as brekkers for breakfast and rugger for rugby football. Britain actually started using the word football in the late 20th century, possibly because people incorrectly saw it as an Americanism. This next one, Tristan couldn't believe. Could you not?
No.
I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know that people in Europe make fun of you for using air conditioning? Why do they need it? Why don't they just leave the window open? Mosquito.
Do we? I'm sure some people might do. I've not heard it.
At least in Florida. But here's why they might be joining us soon. During the 2003 European heatwave, 70,000 people died. This was in large part due to the fact that European homes and buildings are not typically equipped with air conditioning. While they laugh at the Americans for this, hotter summers are going to force them to take appropriate measures, especially since children in
Then I shall purchase it. As I said before in other videos, we get like 1, maybe 2 days of unbearable hot weather. And when I say unbearable, it's just a couple more degrees hotter than any other hot day. But now I can't see me ever needing it in my lifetime, unless, I don't know, the sun explodes or something. But yeah, I like the 1 or 2 very hot days that we get. The sun's out now and it's pretty warm, but I'm still cold enough to have a bloody jumper on. But I've never heard anyone. I've heard people say, "Oh God, I wish I had a air conditioning," but I've never heard anyone mocking you for having it.
the elderly are very susceptible.
Yes, they are.
Again, I stand by mosquitoes. I'm not opening my window in the summer.
See, that's something that we don't have. We cannot have our windows open all day. You might get one fly come in your house, but it'll just fly straight through the other side. We don't have bugs like that here.
Winter, absolutely. Open windows. Moving into the top 9. That's a weird number. Top 9. Many parts of the world accuse the United States of accounting for 25% of the world's carbon emissions. Not so nice. But it also accounts for 25% of the world's economic activity. The truth is that several nations, including countries like Canada, have higher per capita emissions than the US. Next, let's talk about how the world thinks Americans are ruining English. Actually, both British English and American English have diverged from a common 16th century ancestral standard, and in some ways, American English is closer to the original than British English.
I have heard that before, and I actually mentioned it on another video. I've heard it a couple of times. You hear the older movies and stuff like that. There was this transatlantic accent where both sides sounded the same, and they would have done because they came from the same place. I don't know. I think that's more mocking about you simplifying it down and stuff like that. Everywhere that's got English speak it differently, don't they?
For example, American English has, for the most part, retained the language's rotosity, pronunciation of the R in words like hard, while British has, for the most part, dropped it.
Odd. I'm saying the R.
Furthermore, this shift in British English happened around the time of the American Revolution.
Bloody Wi-Fi. This hasn't happened for ages. But I'm going to try my best to neaten it up. There's going to be a couple of little cuts in there because it did go out for about 30 seconds before.
When wealthier Londoners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that...
See, there is a such thing as called is it elocution classes where you go to learn to speak properly. To me, that's insane.
British English is not an unchanging standard
I suppose I just should go to a basic learning how to speak class. Never mind elocution.
more than American English. Foreigners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that British English is not an unchanging standard any more than American English. On a totally different note, did you know that Americans don't all live in the suburbs? Nope, not true. The fact is that in America, you have plenty of people that live in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and the list goes on. In fact, several regions of the United States are very European, like the Northeast Corridor, for example.
Bloody Wi-Fi again. I do hear that in the cities and that they're very walkable. The public transports are all good. But yeah, as America being absolutely massive, you're not all going to be living there, are you?
The difference between the US and Europe is that if you want to live in the suburbs in the US, you can, but you don't have to. Now, this next one is just offensive.
Wi-Fi's stressing me out now. I'm sorry about this one. I don't know why Wi-Fi's dropping out so much.
Americans are all dumb rednecks. Well, there are certainly Americans who fit this stereotype.
Not all Americans are seen as rednecks, but I don't know. I can't think of... Where would rednecks come from in America? You're going to have to let me know. In my head, I think the South or something. And I know it's not all of you that are rednecks. And rednecks don't mind being called rednecks, do they? They're proud, aren't they? But can you get rednecks from all over? It's not just a place. It's a person, a feeling. I don't know. A subgenre of an American.
Type, the vast majority don't. Most Americans live in cities near the coasts. Most of them are educated. And most of them are not very different from Europeans in any significant way. Every country has a less educated populace that they themselves make fun of. Even sophisticated nations like Sweden and Switzerland. Fair warning, the last 5 on our list get a bit dark and crazy, starting with the idea that America is imperialistic. In many parts of Europe, the United States is seen as an aggressive imperial power, even more so than Russia and China. This is largely because our military presence both in Europe and everywhere else. But in our strong defense, Americans never forced you to watch our movies, quarter our soldiers, obey our laws, or get permission to leave your own countries. It was the Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought, after World War II, the Americans liberated and left. The Russians liberated and stayed. All right, number 4 is sure to be a shocker to a lot of foreigners. Americans don't actually all walk around with guns. It's just not true. Except for a few places, the only people you'll ever see carrying guns in America are the police. In fact, you'll see more people walking around with guns in Switzerland than you ever would in America. Okay. We admit that, like most stereotypes, there is some truth.
See, I didn't know that you'd see more people in Switzerland with them, but I did know that was a place where a lot of people have got guns.
To this next one, but it's been wildly blown out of proportion. Americans are all crazy Christian right-wingers. There's something so right about saying it with that accent. Yes, there are a lot of Christians in America, and while some of them are crazy right-wingers, most of them aren't.
What's a crazy
In fact, if you ever
right-winger?
get a chance to go and stay with one of those crazy Christian families, you'll see that most of them are just genuinely sweet people that go to church on Sundays. This next one sounds like a legit stand-up joke. If you get injured and can't pay for it, you'll just die in the street. Yeah, many people in Europe think this is what happens in America.
I don't think anybody believes that. I certainly don't. I've never spoke to anybody about this, but I don't think anybody would think for 1 minute that you'd get left. People might think you're left with a bill, but at the end of the day, if you can't pay it, you can't pay it. I don't think many people believe that. As I said, I've not spoke to people about it, but I sure as hell don't believe that.
As with most things that concern America, they're wrong. You can't be denied emergency medical care in the US. That would go against the Hippocratic Oath. The difference is that you get a bill in the mail a few months later. Of course, debt is another issue, but let's get into that right now. Americans are all in debt. Actually, European citizens carry more debt than Americans. The average household debt in the US, OECD, is 113% of the household's income. In the UK, it's 156%. In Sweden, 173%. And in Denmark, it's a whopping 305%. So, what are some misconceptions about the US that you'd like cleared up? Or do you live in America and want to put a stereotype to rest? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25.
Well, you put my mind to the
as
rest
an
of
American, I
stereotypes.
apologize for everything going on right now. Don't
All
worry,
your
2020
fault.
is just around the corner. Enjoying our lists? Be sure.
I don't know. I like that, you know. I like the video. I liked all the information and that. I'm guessing did it on purpose. Did it all a bit miserably. But yeah, only one I got right was the gun. But that's an obvious one. So yeah, misconception and stereotype is the same thing then. I thought it were. But yeah, I have to say, I'm so sorry. The Wi-Fi looks to have got better right at the end of the video now. But yeah, there's going to be a couple of cuts in there. Hopefully it was nice and neat. You'll have seen it by the time you've seen this bit now. God, I think I'm just talking to myself at this point, right? If you guys enjoyed that, give us a thumbs up if you want to, and subscribe. And oh, by the way, thank you very much to all you subscribers. I am nearly at 2,000, and I am so happy, and I'm glad that you subscribed and watched. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye. Bye-bye.